should have happened years ago. Trump blacklists murderous regime. North Korea with state sponsor of terrorism designation invoking auto warmare. President Donald Trump designated North Korea a state sponsor of terrorism on Monday in his latest challenge to Kim Jong-un's regime to abandon its nuclear ambitions. In a cabinet meeting, Trump called the designation a very critical step that he said will start right now. Should have happened a long time ago. Should have happened years ago, Trump said. The president said new sanctions are on the way for the murderous regime, invoking Otto Warmbier, an American college student who died days after his return to the U.S. from North Korea earlier this year. Trump brought him up Monday as he demanded that North Korea end its unlawful nuclear and ballistic missile development and cease all support for international terrorism. This designation will impose further sanctions and penalties on North Korea and related persons and supports our maximum pressure campaign to isolate the murderous regime, Trump said. The State Department's list of countries that provide aid and comfort to terror groups grows to 4, with today's edition of North Korea, Iran, Sudan, and Syria were already on the list, with Sudan being the most recent of the 3 to be blacklisted in 1993. North Korea had been on the list, but was removed in 2008 by George W. Bush. A senior official suggested that Pyongyang would be back on notice in short order, telling reporters earlier this month that North Korea was designated as a state sponsor of terror once upon a time. It was one of the things that a previous administration lifted that designation as part of a hopeful attempt to lure them into reversing the threat. And, of course, that didn't work out, the official said. So I'd remind that they clearly fit the criteria for a state sponsor of terror in a previous administration. According to the State Department, state sponsors of terrorism are restricted from receiving foreign assistance from the U.S. They also face a ban on defense exports and sales, in addition to other unspecified punishments. The president made the announcement during a cabinet meeting, following through on his administration's promises throughout his trip to Asia to make a decision soon. His spokeswoman confirmed the designation just after he made the remarks in front of reporters. Remarking on his historic trip to Asia, where he pushed for the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, Trump said, "People are respecting our country again, believe me. We will be instituting a very critical step, and that'll start right now," he said. North Korea said last week that it has no intention of ending its nuclear program. "As long as there is continuous hostile policy against my country by the U.S., and as long as there are continued war games at our doorstep, then there will not be negotiations," North Korea's ambassador to the United Nations Han Tae-song said. "Our country plans ultimate completion of the nuclear force." In South Korea earlier this month, the second stop on his 5-nation tour of Asia, Trump said Kim's regime had made numerous lethal incursions in South Korea, attempted to assassinate senior leaders, attacked South Korean ships and tortured Otto Warmbier, ultimately leading to that fine young man's death. The House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed a new set of nuclear sanctions on North Korea in October in Warmbier's name. Warmbier was taken into custody in North Korea in January of 2016 after he yanked down a propaganda poster, authorities with Kim Jong-un's government have said. The regime sentenced him to 15 years hard labor for hostile acts against the state. The 22-year-old college student was in coma when he was released. He passed away less than a week later in his home state of Ohio from an undetermined cause of death that a coroner's report tied to an oxygen deprivation injury a year prior. House legislation bearing Warmier's name cited the North Korean government as a primary money laundering institution and a front for companies that support the development of weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missiles. It also made note of North Korea's sixth nuclear test in September of this year and its illicit manufacturing of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Those sanctions would hit virtually anyone that facilitates trade and investment with North Korea, the bill's author, Rep. Andy Barr of Kentucky, has said. The goal is to incentivize foreign banks to sever ties to anyone involved in the North's economic activity and ultimately cut off Pyongyang's access to the resource it needs in pursuit of its nuclear ambitions, Barr said last month in a statement that was pointed at China, a major trading partner of North Korea. Senators on the Banking Committee advanced the legislation while Trump was in South Korea. Trump has already used the power of the executive office to unilaterally deploy sanctions against North Korea in September during the United Nations General Assembly, after warning that week that the U.S. would totally destroy North Korea if it continues down its current path of destruction. Sanctions yielded by that measure will hit any business or financial institution that does business with North Korea.